All right, so we've been able to make these model objects. We're reading them from the data store, but we have no way to put them in. So we're just going to put them in one at a time. We're going to start with students, right? So we're going to add some students. You get the joke there. Let's go ahead and look at the information that we need to actually add a student. So the things that are done for you. So there's already a form that's coming your way. And if you go into main.py, you can see how that form is going to get directed, right? So there's an add student path, and if there's an add student path, it calls the add student action. So we're here, we're in the add student action. So we need to know what's coming to us, right? So there are a couple different input elements that come our way. So the main thing is the names on these input elements. So we're going to get a first name, a last name, a rows username, and a team. So those are the things coming to us. And then we have to see what it is that we're trying to create, right? So what we're trying to create is we're trying to create to where our key is points up to the parent, that is the get parent key thing. And then it's going to have 4 fields that are the 4 fields that are coming to us directly from the form, right? So it should be a pretty direct comparison. There's also going to be something kind of sneakier. You'll notice that the name of this is add, and the name was not insert. And so you would kind of think if the name is add, then it's going to only do additions, and it's not going to look for getting past an entity key, right? And that's correct, but it's also sneaky, right? Here's the sneaky part. The identifier is the row's username. So let's say that you're adding, David Fisher with the username FisherDS. It's just going to take that entity and it's going to put it in the data store with the identifier FisherDS. And to be honest, it doesn't care if there's one there or not. If there is one there, it's going to clobber it, right? And that's the exact behavior we want. So anything new, it's going to overwrite the old things. And that's the exact behavior we want, which is kind of weird. But if you want that behavior, you can specify the identifier. And then to be honest, add is also an insert. So it edits the old one by blowing it away, right? And that is what we want. Let's go write it. So the first thing is to get the fields that are coming in. So we're going to get a first name, self.request.get.firstname, and that's going to be the same for the other 3. So I'm just going to make them real quick. So you can pause the video if you need. So we've got a first name, we've got a last name, we've got a row's username, and we've got a team. And the form was nice to us, right? Like it actually named the parameter exactly what we'll call the variable name, which is the same name that we're going to put into our object. So let's just go ahead and use these. So what we're going to do is we're going to say new student, and we're just going to create a new student object. And you'll notice that the reason I can do this is because I've already imported student in the code you've got. And some of the things that he's going to have is he's going to have a first name. And so this is like the parameter first name is going to be set to the variable first name, which some people get confused by doing things like that. But I don't know, if you get used to it, you just accept that one of them is the name of the parameter, and then the other is the variable. Oops, I'm going to do row's username before team just because I like to keep them all in the same order. So if we did that, it would actually be kind of a disaster, right? So if this was the only thing we did, and we did a new student dot put, and then we redirected them after that. I guess I'll do the redirect now. Self dot redirect. You could actually just redirect them to dot slash. That works fine, and you can leave that. If you wanted to, though, you could just kind of be in the habit of saying self.request.refer. And we happen to know that it came from slash, but this is probably better practice. So if we did this, it would be a disaster. And the reason it would be a disaster is because if we just created a new student, that student would have no parent, right? So it would just be a key with no parent. And then it wouldn't be tied to any user. So like whoever's logged in, it's just kind of generic. And none of our queries would pull it out. So that would be a disaster. So the things that we have to do is first and foremost is we have to set the parent on this guy. So what he needs to be set to is he needs to be set to that get parent key for user. So if we need that get parent key for a user, well, first we need a user, right? So we kind of got to back up. Let's make a new variable called user. And this new variable called user, we're going to use a utility called users get current user. You'll notice that users is something that I already imported up here. And now we've got the user, so we can call that utils function. So you'll notice that I already imported the utils function. Get parent key. And so you have to pass that function to user, which we now have, and then he's going to create that fictitious parent key. But if you remember the format of it, it was of kind entity, and it had a key name that was the person's email address. So if fisherds@gmail.com was logged in, it would create a key that's entity and then fisherds@gmail.com, right? And so that's going to be how we're organizing things. So that was one part of it. But if you go back and look at it, it also needed an identifier set to be the row's username. So if you wanted to do that, it actually needs another thing on here. It needs an ID specified that's equal to row's username. Now we're cooking with gas. And the other thing I'll say is that, row's username got used in 2 places. So it kind of made sense to break that one out. But these others, if you wanted to just inline them to make your code shorter, to be honest, it might even be more readable that way, right? You could totally make your code a few lines shorter and just inline these things. So there I just inline those 3, and then that gives me the ability to delete those lines of code. I'll choose to go ahead and keep row's username out because you can see that we put it in 2 places. Note that we did put it in 2 places, and that begs the question of, could you have simply not had that property on the object? And to be honest, I bet that you could. But I chose to do it this way. Again, it may not be maximally efficient, but I got to tell you that one extra column in the data store, you're never going to notice. So if you want to be maximally efficient, you could probably see if that one could be removed as a property since it's already present as the ID, but I'm not going to bother. So, all right, if it's running, what we should be able to do now is we should be able to use students. So if I do a refresh, I sometimes forget to do a refresh when I do things like this, and I go to students and I say add students. I'm going to try to add my first student, so I'll add myself, right? So Fisher, David, Fisher DS is my username, and I'm going to be on team 42. What the heck? Now, when you add it, you won't see it here because nothing shows up here until it's got a grade, but you can go to students, edit, delete, and you can see that now you're in here, right? And interestingly enough, if you hit edit and you say, I'm just going to change it to Dave Fisher, and I'm actually on team 10, and I say okay, it actually does another add, and you can see that it has only 1 student still, but with the new information on it. By the way, this modal popped up again just because of some stuff I'm doing in JavaScript. So when the page reloaded, it immediately showed the modal to bring you back here, right? So awesome, that's pretty cool. And by the way, delete does work. If you wanted to delete the student, that would work. I'm going to choose not to, just because I don't want to have to type them in again. All right, students, check. So we're just going to kind of go through these different handlers one at a time. There's one down. See you next time when we do some stuff with assignments.